What happens when the Mavic 3 Classic encounters an obstacle when using cruise control mode? And how can you hand launch the drone if you're in an area where the ground is unsuitable? Well, along with them questions, today I wanted to share with you 10 things you may not know about the new Mavic 3 Classic. Let's jump right in. The DJI Mavic 3 Classic brings with it new modes and features such as cruise control and night mode. And as these are new features, there is plenty to learn about. Also, if you're upgrading from a smaller drone, there are specific settings within the DJI Fly app that are unique to the Mavic 3 that can help with the drone's safety and the quality of the videos and photos you take. Well, in this video, we are going to take a look at 10 things you may not know about the DJI Mavic 3 Classic. And let's get started with number 1. Let's start with a few things about cruise control mode, which is a new feature on the Mavic 3 Classic and Mavic 3 with a firmware update. If you don't know what cruise control mode is, you firstly activate it by assigning your C2 function button in the settings to the new cruise control mode. Then when flying and making inputs on the joysticks of your controller, such as doing an orbit move with your drone, and you press that C2 function button, cruise control mode will be enabled, basically logging them inputs in, meaning that when you let go of the joysticks, the drone will continue to do that move. But did you know that you can actually use your gimbal while using cruise control mode? So let's say, for example, you're pushing forward, you've enabled that cruise control mode. Well, you can actually use your gimbal while the drone's flying forward. And this means you can do complex moves really easily with your drone. You no longer need to be making multiple inputs on the controller. You can simply lock the motion in using cruise control mode, and then all you have to focus on is using the gimbal, and this can help you be even smoother on the scroll wheel to get them epic shots. And you can also take this a step further by actually adding more inputs to the drone's movement while using cruise control. Just because you've started a motion and locked it in place using the cruise control mode with your drone doesn't mean that you can't change it while the drone is moving. So again, let's say you start flying and enable cruise control mode. Well, while the drone is flying, you can actually start to rotate the drone left or right to dictate the direction it's flying or to do a drone move using the joysticks. So again, this can allow you to alter moves as you do them with cruise control mode. It can allow you to maybe have the drone handle one input on the controller, so you only need to focus on the other. And it can also help you be smoother and more consistent when doing a drone move. So before we take a look at the next thing you may not know about the DJI Mavic 3 Classic, I just wanted to thank today's video sponsor, which is Wirestock. Wirestock is a tool that helps you take the clips you capture with the DJI Mavic 3 Classic or any drone and easily sell them as stock to potentially make a little bit of side income. It's as simple as uploading the drone clips you capture to their website, and they distribute it to all the major stock marketplaces. To make things even easier, you can use Easy Submission, and they will go through and add all the metadata to each clip for you. This is great because it means you can focus on getting the best clips possible, edit them, upload them, and let Wirestock handle the rest. The best thing about Wirestock is that you don't need multiple accounts on all the stock marketplace websites. You only have one account and one dashboard to track everything, including how many downloads you have had, and more importantly, the earnings for each clip. Wirestock also automatically creates a portfolio page for you, and you can use this to sell your stock directly to potential buyers by sending them the link. So if you want to try selling your drone footage as stock to make a little bit of side income, then head to the link in the description where you can get started with Wirestock right now. Now, something you may not know about cruise control mode is that you can actually use it when doing a hyperlapse with the Mavic 3 Classic. To do this, all you need to do is again make sure that the cruise control mode is assigned to your function button, then go to the free hyperlapse mode, adjust the hyperlapse parameters such as duration, then hit record, and then start to move your drone in the direction or movement you want for your hyperlapse. Once you're happy, simply press the function button to enable cruise control mode, and then your drone will hold this motion during a hyperlapse. Now this is super useful because holding your fingers in place for the duration of a hyperlapse, 3, 4, 5 minutes, can be quite tricky. You'll probably find it's hard to stay consistent for that duration. Well, by logging it in place using cruise control mode, it means you get one nice smooth motion for the duration of your hyperlapse, and I think this is a super useful feature. Now, a question I've seen asked quite a lot online is, what happens when you're using cruise control mode and the drone comes across an obstacle? So if you have your safety settings and obstacle avoidance set to brake when the drone sees an obstacle, then whenever you're using cruise control mode and you come across an obstacle, the drone will simply brake and hover in place. If you have your safety and obstacle avoidance settings set to bypass, whenever the drone comes across an obstacle using cruise control mode, it will simply fly around the obstacle if it can. Now, a new mode that was recently added to the DJI Mini 3 Pro is ISO and shutter priority. But with the Mavic 3 Classic, we actually have aperture, ISO and shutter priority. So these modes sit in the middle between full automatic video mode, where the drone controls the aperture, ISO and shutter speed for you to try and achieve the perfect exposure, and manual or pro mode, where you manually adjust them 3 parameters to get the exposure dialed in for your preference. With aperture, ISO and shutter speed priority, you can manually set a single one of them parameters and the drone will automatically manage the other 2 to try and keep your exposure correct. All you have to do to use this mode is simply manually set either the aperture, shutter speed or ISO to your preference, and then tick the auto box between the other 2 parameters that you want the drone to automatically control. And the really nice thing about this is, whenever you're adjusting ISO manually, you have to adjust it in full stop increments. But whenever you're using a priority mode, the ISO can actually change in 10th increments, meaning there is much finer control and much smaller jumps between the ISO settings. Speaking of aperture, we can manually adjust the aperture with the Mavic 3 Classic. And this might be new to you if you've come from a smaller drone, such as a Mini 2 or a Mini 3 Pro, which has a fixed aperture. So why might you change your aperture? Well, by increasing your aperture, you can darken down the exposure of your image, and by decreasing your aperture, you can actually brighten up your image. So again, it just gives you another parameter you can change when you're in the air to make sure you get that exposure dialed in correctly. The DJI Mavic 3 Classic also has a new night mode, and this is now available on the Mavic 3 as well with a firmware update. If you've filmed with a drone at nighttime before, you might know that by increasing the ISOs to make sure that you can see your image, that you might introduce noise into your video. Well, whenever you enable night mode on the Mavic 3 Classic, it increases the noise reduction that's being added to your image. And this can result in a much cleaner video for you to use. It also changes the ISO settings by increasing the base ISO to 800 and giving you a higher ISO of 12,800 over the 6,400, which is available in the normal video mode. The only small thing you need to be aware of that you might notice when you first use this mode is that it crops the image in ever so slightly. Another thing you may not know is whenever you go into the gain and expo settings of the Mavic 3 Classic, which is where you adjust things like the yaw speed, gimbal smoothness and expo settings, you will find that the Mavic 3 Classic has much more customizability available to you over something like the DJI Mini 3 Pro. For example, you have settings such as how quickly the drone will ascend or descend, and you have settings over the braking sharpness. You can also adjust the expo settings for normal, sport mode and cine mode, so you have much more customizability with these settings to make sure you get the drone dialed in to your personal flying preference. Now, if you're completely new to drones, something you may not know is that the propellers on the 2 diagonals are actually different. So if you need to replace these because you've clipped the branch and maybe cracked one, or you've taken them off and you're putting them back on, make sure you're putting the right one on the right arm of the drone. Now, the DJI Mavic 3 Classic makes this super handy because you can't actually put the wrong propeller on the wrong arm of the drone. These propellers are quick release, so you simply push them down and twist them into place, but you will not be able to push the wrong propeller onto the wrong motor of the drone and twist it into place. You simply won't be able to push it in and turn it round. So if you're putting the propeller on and you're feeling resistance and it won't easily lock in place, then don't force it, because chances are you're using the wrong propellers. Simply try them propellers on the opposite arm of the drone. Now, if you need to hand launch your Mavic 3 Classic because you're in an area that's maybe unsuitable, it's maybe very sandy, or there's lots of tall grass and you don't want to damage them propellers, then just be extra cautious. Remember, this is not a Mini 3 Pro, this is a much larger, heavier drone. Now, the method I use to hand launch the Mavic 3 Classic is I hold it by its underneath, I hold it at full arm's length. And the reason I do this is because the last thing you want to happen when the propellers start to spin is realize they're too close to your face and then propellers hit you. So make sure it's at full arm's length. Make sure that you're standing with the tailwind towards your back, because whenever you hand launch the drone, the last thing you want is there to be a gust of wind and the drone to be blowing towards you. If there's a gust of wind, you want the drone to be blown away from you. Then I simply press the auto takeoff button and I hold the auto takeoff circle until it fully completes. I keep hold of the drone until I feel it start to lift off from my hand. And then as it lifts away from my hand, I also take a step back just to make sure if there's a gust of wind, it doesn't blow towards me. And using this method, you should be able to safely take off the Mavic 3 Classic without any issues. So hopefully now you know more about the DJI Mavic 3 Classic and its modes and settings. If you liked this video and you learned something new, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up and clicking that like button down below. And if you love all things drones and want to know how to get better photos and more cinematic videos with your drone, then I recommend you check out my channel where I have a ton of other content to help you level up your drone game. Make sure to subscribe and make sure that notification bell's on so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And if you want to stick around and see a few more of them now, here's a few I personally recommend. I'll not keep you back any further. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you over there.